Good morning. This is Misty Amaya, Education and Workforce Manager of the Longview Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to welcome you to our Superintendent's Forum webinar hosted by the Longview Chamber of Commerce and sponsored by Eastman Chemical. We will begin with a few housekeeping items. First, this webinar is being recorded and will be made available online at longviewchamber.com. For those on the line, you will receive an email later today with a link to listen again and/or share with others. Next, there are a couple of features I'd like to make you aware of. You will be muted throughout the presentation. You will be able to listen to our presenters during the panel of questions and answers. If you do not see the green title screen at this time, please look to your toolbar for the GoToWebinar icon. It looks like a flower. Lastly, please find the questions section. You can type in this feature with a message for the organizer, making them aware of any issues with the broadcast. This is also where you will type in any questions you want to ask of the superintendents throughout the presentation. Questions will be answered when the initial panel has concluded. The Longview Chamber of Commerce is thinking of you during this difficult time. We recognize this is a painful season and our community is looking for answers. While we don't have all the answers, we do have access to experts in specific areas that can provide you with a place to start. Today, we are blessed to have our three local Longview superintendents, Dr. James Wilcox from Longview ISD, Mr. Steve Clugston from Pine Tree ISD, and Dr. Wayne Guidry from Spring Hill ISD. Our superintendents have given their time to provide an update and answer questions or concerns we have heard from our business community and community at large. So at this time, we will go ahead and begin with the questions. So, and you guys can speak in any order. Let's talk about seniors. Some may be ready to graduate at this point with no issues, but others may have been depending on these last few months to increase their grades or fulfill other requirements to ensure their graduation. So from both an economic outlook at the incoming labor pool and a parental point of view, is the plan to promote all seniors at this point?
We, over at Pine Tree, any of our seniors that have to get certain credits in order to secure graduation, or maybe have to have a certain grade to secure graduation, we've targeted those seniors and have made sure that we've got provisions in place for them to complete a certain amount of assignments in order to ensure that graduation happens. It's kind of one of those things, we're not really giving them a choice. If we got to call them every day, that's what we do. If we got to go knock on the door, that's what we do. I give our seniors credit. They've done a good job. The ones that do need to finish up stuff, they're all on board about taking care of it. You know, we've reached out to every student one-on-one to make sure that they have everything they need to complete what we need.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, here in Spring Hill, you know, our secondary students, grades 6 through 12, we're real fortunate that we all knew how to use Google Classroom, our staff and our students. So for our seniors, it's to some degree been pretty flawless for them to be able to continue their courses, you know, through Google Classroom. You know, our big issue this week is we're trying to account for everybody to make sure all of our seniors and all of our students are logged in and, you know, participating in the classes. So I don't see any road bumps. You know, similar to Mr. Clugston, we're going to make every effort to where, you know, our kids are going to graduate. They're going to, you know, one, complete their work. We're going to make sure they're working on it. And we foresee all of our students, all of our seniors being able to graduate with no problems.
The same thing for Longview ISD. We don't anticipate any of the seniors not meeting their qualifications. They've been extremely cooperative, involved, and so is our staff. And, you know, my hat's off just to our staff for the effort that they've put forth to make sure that all these students graduate on time. The students have been very receptive, and as it's going now, we expect all of our seniors to graduate on time. Now, we don't know what graduation is going to be like, but they will be graduating and will be receiving their diploma.
Thank you. To that same end, how will decisions concerning all grade transitions be made? From a career readiness standpoint, there was already some concern that many students were not college and career ready. Will promoting them to the next level without finishing their current level put us as a community farther behind? And also with that, please help us understand where students will pick up academically when schools reopen.
Our teachers are making sure all of our students do complete the year. That's whether we're passing out a physical packet for them to complete each week, or whether it's online because they have access to internet. Our teachers are making sure that each kid is able to complete what they need to complete in order to move forward. And we make those decisions individually, student by student, depending on where they're at currently and what they get completed between now and the end of school. And we're staying on them to make sure they do. We'll also probably have an enlarged group that will attend summer school. And what we're looking at summer school is moving it into July, the last 3 weeks of July, and it's going to be more of a kickstart. So any of those kids that are kind of borderline that you really can't afford any regression with, we'll bring them in July and get 3 weeks of prep work as a kickstart to the new year.
If you divide the two groups of kids up, our secondary kids, grades 6 through 12, or even more so our high school kids, I mean, those will be the ones, going out to the workforce, the soonest. Our kids are smarter than we ever dreamed of being back when we were in school. As I'm sure a lot of our parents are learning now, is having to do work with them and assist them. I think our seniors going out in the workforce and, our high school kids, I think they're going to be better prepared than any of our recent graduates that have went out in the workforce. I attribute a lot of my success to having grown up in the 80s when, during the 1980s, it was a very difficult time, a long recession. People didn't have a lot of things. And there's a lot of things I learned, I think we all learned through those difficult times. And I think our seniors or all of our high schools kids they're getting, just a taste of grit, of having to overcome some odd things, some difficult circumstances in life. And I think that's what our high school kids miss more than anything, is just overcoming obstacles in life. And I think our kids are going to be, more prepared now than any group of kids, just having gone through this. I mean, there's a lot of things our kids are having to figure out now in terms of online learning, creating daily schedules. But on the other side, with our primary kids and our younger kids, I think it is vitally important that they don't miss anything right now, because the thing about our younger kids is they're basically learning geniuses. You figure by the time they're 3 years old, they've learned an entire language. And over time, that efficiency goes away. And that's why, we're really trying to encourage our younger parents, keep those kids reading, keep them involved in math. Because those are the kids that can't afford to miss anything. If they miss it now, it'll impact them for the rest of their life, the information they lose. And we're similar to Pine Tree. We're thinking about things we're going to do during the summertime to extend this school year out.
We're happy with where our students are, and I think the biggest thing, let's talk first about our seniors entering the workforce, and it has constantly been reinforced to all of our students. I think in all of our schools in the area, that you're not going to leave whatever high school you graduate from and go directly into the workforce and keep one job for 30 years. With one skill, you're going to have to retrain, you're going to have to reboot, you're going to have to be flexible, you're going to need to understand that change is inevitable, and that no matter what you do, you have to be ready, you have to be flexible to change your career projection and move that comfort zone and accept that, hey, life is ever changing, and your resiliency is what's going to move you forward. And I think this is just another step in reinforcing that. And I don't have concerns about our students making the transition, because this is just one more thing to ready them for life. And we feel good about the students that we have. We've spent a lot of years preparing them for this step, and I think that them having to adjust to this change for their graduation and entering the workforce and going on to college or whatever they're doing is just one more step in completing that, and reinforces the flexibility and the trainability that they're going to have the rest of their working career. So I feel good about the students we're sending into the workforce. I hate that they're having to go through this, but one of the big things that they're learning is, hey, everything changes. And just like the philosophy we have and we put out on every correspondence that we try to send out is, this is our position today. We're evaluating all input, all data on a daily basis, and today's decision is subject to change. And I think that's a great lesson for our students, all grade levels, to understand and to see and to start making that part of their internal preparation for life. And I think it's a great step for our seniors. It's unfortunate for everyone, but it's a big lesson. And I think most of these kids will carry it with them the rest of their life.
Thank you. So you mentioned flexibility. And the teachers are having to find new and creative ways to reach the student outside of that physical classroom as well, in order to keep them moving forward in their education. What role do you need parents to play in making those efforts successful? And how are your districts holding those students accountable for completing the work?
Well, in Longview, that hadn't been a problem. Our teaching staff is exceptional, and they come up with innovative ideas faster than we can, and they bounce them off of us just where we will know what is going on in the instructional delivery. But there are virtually no negative feedback coming to us from kids' parents not being cooperative, not being acceptable to the new learning technology. It's just the opposite. Our parents and our students have been extremely responsive to all the new innovative ideas that our teachers have developed and came up with. We are coordinating all of that through our C&I department, and the results have been more than I ever expected. We started this Friday before we closed school for the COVID-19 crisis, pandemic. And so we actually have things in place Tuesday after we closed schools, because our teachers worked all weekend to get that ready to go, and we got it out Monday, and we got it in the hands of our students on Tuesday. And a lot of the online stuff went out Monday, the first day we were out. So our teachers have been phenomenal. They already have their professional learning communities are meeting virtually, and they're just, when we come up with an idea, we find out that they're already doing it. So we're pleased with the response for great teachers, and even more pleased with the response from our students as well as their parents.
I would just second that. We've taken an education system that we've used for centuries, and basically, you've got 3 school districts here that have just completely created an entire new system within a matter of, days. And, as Mr. Wilcox said, our staff is just amazing. I'm just taken back that we were able to do things we've done in just, a matter of days. And it starts with our teachers. I think found appreciation among our parents for teachers. Our teachers have been reaching out, calling, class dojoing, any means possible just to reach our parents and our students. Yesterday we started off, we actually do the pledges in the morning with Facebook Live. So anyway, our staff is amazing. It's just phenomenal that we've been able to turn the system around and create a brand new method of educating our kids just within a matter of weeks. It's interesting to listen to some of the parent feedback concerning the struggles they have, and because basically they take on a new full-time job of becoming a teacher. And a lot of the comments reminds me of my first year being a teacher. I thought teaching was going to be easy. My first year, you just go in and tell kids what to do, and surely they would sit down and just comply. But it's not that easy. And that's something else we're thinking about, is how do we give some teachers some tip or parents tips on how to teach, because it is definitely an art that I think a lot of parents are starting to understand that it's not as easy as I once thought it was going to be when I walked into the classroom as a brand new teacher.
I think the biggest change that we're seeing, is adapting to what access and abilities that our kids have. You know, we've got kids with devices and internet all the way down to kids without any of that. We've got kids with a great deal of support and help they can get from home. We've got kids that don't have any support at home. So teachers having to adapt to that is probably one of the toughest things. We've given our teachers the freedom. They know their kids better than we do. And so they're reaching out and figuring out what a kid needs and what type of work they can use, whether it be online or whether it be a hard packet. And we've had a great deal of support from parents about coming up and picking up packets and returning packets that because they don't have any electronic method of sending that in. And so I've been real pleased with the patience and the help from parents. But make no mistake, you know, it's not the same as being in the classroom with that teacher all day long. The sheer magnitude of work that we get during the day, there's probably no way that's going to happen remotely like it would in the classroom. So we've got to be a little smarter about how we do things and making sure that we really concentrate on the key factors. So the work that we do get is the quality that we need it and gets us keeps us moving along, but definitely probably not making the gains we'd be making if we were here all day long. You know, I kind of feel you mentioned earlier about some people felt like we were a little bit behind our students' work overall as a community. Well, that's the reason we need to make more gains than just a year's growth. And we were set out to really make huge gains this year. With this, it does put us in where we're trying to make sure we maintain what has to be maintained and we make the gains necessary. But we're not going to make the kind of gains we would make if we had them here all day long every day. That's one reason we're looking at an extended summer school. Very proud of our staff. They stepped in, and I've got teachers that have multiple things going on at one time because they have multiple needs in their classroom with accessibility from their students. And that's across the board from kindergarten all the way up to high school. I've been amazed at how well the teachers have worked together and sharing ideas, planning together, and just really trying to figure out what it is their particular kids need.
Mr. Clugston, you bring up a good point about the different needs of students. Some have access to internet, some have access to Wi-Fi. And in a minute, I want to ask you how you're helping those that don't. And I want to ask all three superintendents that question. But my question is, how long do you think it's going to take to recover from that ripple effect caused by the lack of formal, equitable education? Do you think this is something that's going to be recovered quickly over the summer, or do you think it's going to take throughout the next school year?
Well, I think for some of our kids, I mean, if you look at it, you've got kids at all levels all the time. And the more students you have that live in poverty situations, you know, quite often they've moved around a lot, school to school. They're playing from behind when they get here. And so we're always working with those kids to gain more than just a year's growth. We need those kids to gain more than a year's growth every year for several years in order to catch them back up. For our kids this year, you know, I don't worry so much about gaining our year's growth. We need to gain more than a year's growth. And that's one reason, like I say, we're looking at the summer school as a jump start to make sure we get a good kickoff in the next year. We hit the ground run to try and make sure we can gain more than a year. We need to gain more than a year because our kids that, like I say, that have moved around, that don't have a lot of support at home, when they come to us, quite often they're behind. And so how do we catch them up with the average kid? And that's your biggest concern. You really won't know the effects of this until you get your kids back. We're hoping that the effects of this aren't putting us any far behind. And I really don't think they're going to put us any farther behind. We're just not going to be able to gain on our gain on this as much as we normally would had I had those kids all day long for the last 8 weeks of school.
Yeah,
Answer your question.
I think it's one thing to keep in perspective. I mean, we're not losing an entire school year. You know, we made it through the majority of the school year. You know, we're just looking at that last quarter, which we don't want to lose anything. You know, we want to continue to grow. And, for me, it's just keeping it realistic. You know, I walk around our district today and there's not one soul here, you know, in terms of students. We have empty classrooms. But I think the thing to keep in perspective is that, you know, all of our schools, all three Longview area schools, we all have something in place, you know, reaching out to our students. But that is ultimately our biggest challenge is the kids with, you know, at different ability levels, you know, and they come from different homes. You know, my wife asked a great question. I've got 2 kids in school. Her comment was, I just want to know what my kids are expected to learn. I'll teach them, just give me the information. And then you have, you know, on the other end of the spectrum, you know, kids that, you know, we go out and pass out food in some of our neighborhoods. And I truly believe that some people don't come and get food at 12:30 in the afternoon because they're still sleeping. And education is just not, you know, on their radar right now. And for me, that's troubling. You know, we're trying to figure out, you know, the answer to my wife's question and to the rest of the parents, but also how do we get these kids up and get them involved in, you know, the materials that we pass out to them. And, you know, I think that the bottom line, it comes down to our teachers, and, you know, they're avidly trying to, you know, reach out to these students. And that's our goal this week, is to find out who's connected to us and who's not. I want to find out which students aren't really communicating with us and not really turning any work back in, just so we can account for who we need to go out and knock on some doors or do something to pull those kids in so that gap doesn't continue to widen over the year.
Well, one of our priorities in Longview has always been closing the gap between our highest performing students and those that don't perform at that highest level. And so that's going to be business as usual. That's something that we always have on the forefront. That's something that we always focus on. That's something that's always a priority with our staff, and they understand that. And the expectations will be there for our students, and they will perform. First heard about the self-fulfilling expectation when I was in college, and that was a long, long, long time ago. And I have never been any place or dealt with any student where that wasn't true. What we expect of our students is exactly what they will deliver. And we can talk a big game and say a bunch of things, but the proof is in the pudding. And that's not an oversimplification. The students will do exactly what you expect them to. They'll be exactly where you truly expect them to be, and the people that are working with them expect them to be. So we don't anticipate a drop off in performance of our students next year on all accountability guidelines. And I have no doubt that I will not be disappointed and I will not be let down. They will be exactly where we expect them to be and exactly where we think they'll be. So I think, as Wayne said a while ago, they're amazing little learning machines, and they can do it. I guess one of the things that reinforces that, it was also a pretty long time ago that I was at a conference, and we had a teacher from Sweden presenting to us on how many languages they teach in their elementary schools. And that was 6. And that was amazing to a lot of people in the audience. And the first question from sort of a naysayer in the audience was, well, you're teaching 6 languages to your students. What's overkill? How many languages do you think your students can learn? And the young lady didn't even hesitate, said, our students will learn as many languages as we are willing to teach them. And that's just how it is, and that's not an oversimplification.
Thank you. So touching back on the subject of the technology versus paper packets, what people have access to, are any of your districts helping provide access somehow, Wi-Fi, tablets, anything like that, any technology to the students who don't have them?
Over at Pine Tree, we've kind of, our high school is probably utilize more of the Google Classroom and things of that nature on a wider scale than any of the other campuses. Got a lot more kids that are taking dual credit courses online. We also have the Excel High School, which is a completely online. It's an online platform in there. So we've started with ensuring that every one of those kids has access to internet and access to a device. At the lower levels, if a kid needs a device, we will give them a device. They just let us know and we'll get it delivered to them. As far as getting internet, that's more of a challenge. Of course, a lot of our high school kids are able to drive up and jump on our guest network while they sit in their car in the parking lot. We also have 200 hotspots ordered. We had some already. We've given those out to the specific kids that are in a class that requires it on a daily basis. But we've got another 200 ordered. It's just they're on back order because everybody's needing them. But we'll get those in, and that should take care of every bit of our high school problem and then some. But that's an ongoing problem that you have is who has access to Wi-Fi. And I think that's one thing when we come out of this on the other side, I think that's one thing we're going to be a little better prepared for and have some good ideas on how do we ensure better access to internet, because that's something that you're going to see the different platforms that teachers can use and the ways they can get information to kids, even when the kids are out, or just on a daily basis, that a kid can start something at night, the night before class, and then bring it to the classroom. That need for internet is going to get wider and wider. You look at all your internet at home, it's been a little slower lately because everybody's on it. And so I think one thing we'll do as a community and as schools and everything else is I think our internet access, I think we'll get better at finding ways to improve that and to get it to more people.
We were very fortunate that we just ordered 150 Chromebooks and just received them right before this, before the spring break. So we passed out over 100 of those to our secondary students. And similar to Mr. Clugston, we ordered 20 hotspots as soon as we got back. And it was kind of a test because I didn't want to order a bunch of them and then them not show up. And as of today, they haven't even put those in the mail. So I'm afraid, maybe summertime before any of us receive any type of hotspots that we've ordered. And again, as Mr. Clugston mentioned, right now this is one of our biggest challenges, is getting students connected. I think our students and families are becoming pretty creative, and I've heard of students going to being able to log into neighbors networks and different things like that. So I think they're becoming pretty creative, with the cell phones opening up their data limits. I think our kids are finding ways to connect. It's definitely a challenge right now, and that's something we're trying to inquire about this week to find out how many kids aren't connected, because we definitely make sure our high school kids are able to finish their courses and get credit for those.
Well, part of our curriculum delivery instructional plan for next year was a Chromebook for every student in the district, grades 1 through 12. And so we already had that in the planning stages for delivery in August. And we just had to ramp that up. And the problem has been, of course, is now everybody is trying to access those, even though they're not possibly planning on a one-to-one for every student in the district above kindergarten. There's still a lot of need. So we completed a home survey of, there are a lot of families that might have 2, 3, 4 children, or possibly even more in the school district. So our survey identified which household needs a hotspot. If you have 3 kids or 4 kids, you only need 1 hotspot. And so we already had all that planning and on the way. But as Wayne said, who knows when we're going to receive delivery of those because of this nationwide pandemic. And it's a frightening thing, but we were a little ahead of the curve in that we already had this plan developed. But I don't know if we'll have those in August or just what the suppliers will be able to provide. But it's something that we already had in place, and it's might be a little later than we anticipated. But it was something that our teachers and our C&I department had already developed, and something we were working on with a one-to-one delivery. And we had already undertaken that this year, but we still don't have those to every student from first grade on up. but the majority of our students do have access to this. But whenever they're available, every student in the district will have connectivity and the device to help them get there. Something that chamber members may not be aware of is that every textbook published in the state of Texas has to have an electronic version. So that's why you don't see our students loaded down with heavy backpacks every day, and especially in the future, is because that textbook is available in their electronic device. And that was a foresight on the state of Texas. And our students would rather access their textbook through whatever device they're using, their phone or their laptop or their Chromebook or iPad or whatever they have. They prefer that. And when we've been aware of that now for a pretty extended period of time, and we're trying to fulfill that need because our goal is to get them to use those resources. And if they would rather access it on their electronic device than wagging that textbook around, that's been something we've been focusing on for the last 2 years. And this pandemic is going to help us ramp that up. So, but there's a lot of challenges ahead for all of us.
Speaking of your challenges, how can our business community assist you guys? We've had offers from some of our members for delivery to help you guys. I know that there's some legal issues there, but tutoring, offering food, what ways can our business community help you guys?
I think the most important, I guess, thing that is coming to my mind in terms of businesses, I've got 2 kids in school, so I'm also a parent, and I am very fortunate that my wife, her employer has allowed flexible scheduling so that she can be at home to work with the kids and, do work at home. Ultimately, that's our biggest challenge right now is we don't have kids. Our kids are gone. They're in households. So anyway, I just hope, the businesses will work with parents, because basically a lot of parents have taken on a second job now and trying to, educate their children, especially, our younger kids, that are in primary and intermediate grades. Those kids, this is that special time for them when they're little just sponges of knowledge, in terms of their learning ability. And that's what we can't miss right now, is for our younger kids to be able to maintain some type of structured life, where they're reading, working on math, working on their, the schoolwork that we're providing. And, I think if employers would just check with their employees, find out who these parents are, and just make sure that, they're providing, flexibility for them to be with their kids as well.
For me, with the business community, I think Wayne's got a good point. Being as flexible as they can with their employees, and that's one thing I give all the business community credit for. They've done a great job about working together, and this being, we're all in this together and trying to help each other out. I think as we move forward, I think some of the things that are going to get tougher on families and in places where I think businesses are going to be able to help out a little bit is as money gets tighter, food's going to get more scarce. And so, being able to help us provide to those parents weekend meals and things of that nature. I see our backpack program expanding a great deal. I think going into this, we had about 58 families on the backpack program that we sent home on the weekends, and that's probably going to expand if this persists, much longer. And so I think help there. As far as delivery, we've had a huge outpouring from our local churches to help us get those backpacks delivered and helping them put together. But as far as delivering our most things on a daily basis, our transportation department has done a fantastic job of getting that done. That's hasn't been a huge area of concern for us right now. We've got the help to do that. But I do think as we move forward, the needs of our families are going to change. And I think just being prepared to help out wherever those needs may arise is going to be important. I know we had a call the other day from a parent that needed like a mobile scooter because they weren't able to walk, and so we put them in touch with the AMBUCS organization, which is a great organization of a lot of our local business leaders, and they got that taken care of. So to me, that's I think that's huge.
In looking at everything we're facing and the help from the business community, and I agree with Steve there on weekend meal availability, but something long term that I think would be fantastic. About 7 years ago, Rotary Club of Longview, one of their projects for the year was developing a backpack program here in Longview, and working with that club and doing that, and that was a annual goal, and after a couple of years, they stopped that as one of their service projects because it was the project was to seed that and get it started. In Longview ISD, we deliver about 800 backpack meals every Friday, and that is something that we are carrying on the backs of donations, mainly from staff, and then the district makes up the difference. So if businesses want to have a long-term impact, a monthly donation, I think to any or all of the 3 districts to their backpack program would be something that would help through this crisis and then on into the future. Our 800 students that get backpacks every Friday, none of them are misusing that food. It is all going to a citizen of Longview that's hungry. And some of our students, tell us that, or ask us, hey, can I have some extra for my little brother or my older brother or my mother or whomever? And it is a way that our business community could get involved to help see us through this pandemic, but also make our community a better place to live ongoing. Because a hungry citizen is not a productive citizen. And if you're hungry and you get feelings of nobody cares about me, feeling of desperation, feelings of it doesn't matter, why do I want to go on? Why do I want to live like this? It's a big deal, and I can't think of any other way that the business community could have a more long-term impact than donating to the backpack programs of any or all of the 3 districts. And we could improve the quality of the food that we send out in our backpacks. And, and it has to be things that last. And we also include fruit in those, but that would be a really long-term impact, and I think improves the quality of life for everybody that lives in the city of Longview and Gregg County.
Thank you, gentlemen. If you can.
Hey, hang on, Miss, just quick. I'm sitting there checking some emails, and while I'm going through this as well, and I like George Willis, who's over at New Beginnings Baptist Church, and they're helping with all the backpack programs and helping to put those together and helping to get those delivered as well for schools. But one of the things that he sent me an email on is just their food pantry is running low because there's been such a need, and that need seems to be growing. So one of those areas is Doc was saying, any help we can get to help get those donations to the food pantry in order to put these backpacks together would be a great help. So anyone in the community or in the business community that wanted to help with that, you can bring those, drop those off at just about any of the local churches. Definitely, New Beginnings is the one that is kind of at the forefront of heading that up for several of them. But that would be a great help.
Can you gentlemen get me a list of common items that are needed for those, and we can disseminate that information out to our members. That'd probably be the best way. And then if you have contacts like New Beginnings or other churches, organizations that have volunteered to be those drop-off points so that we can communicate where those supplies need to go.
I'll take care of that.
Absolutely. Our food service department does that here in Longview, and we send them home with their backpack every Friday, and all they have to do is bring that back Monday, and it gets refilled. But I will get with our food service director for some recommended items, but basically it's going to be a monetary donation, and if that could be monthly, a number of our employees have payroll deduction coming out of their check every month to help feed their students. And so anything like that that'll help us plan long term and where we won't have to cut back. But we send over 800 of those out every Friday, and the Longview Food Service Department would appreciate the help, and that just call the main switchboard here at the LISD, and they'll get you where you need to be, and we can set that up on pre-authorized checking. If your business wants to do that, it would be a fantastic help. And as I say, every penny goes to help feed someone in Longview that's hungry. So it's something that we took on as a district because of the tremendous need. And thanks again to the Rotary Club for seeding that and getting that going, and Carol Greenwood and the other guys that worked in getting. Carol Greenwood is with Eastman Chemical, and he was the person that we worked with in setting up the backpack program. And Carol's just one of those guys with a great heart. And I know there are a lot of other business folks out there with great hearts, but this is something that can have a lasting positive impact on all of Longview and all of Gregg County. So sorry I got off on all that.
That's okay. For these next couple of questions, I've got two more before we start taking questions from the audience. So what I'm going to ask is for the remaining questions, if just one person will answer, unless you have something dramatically different from what the person who answers says, you guys can jump in on that. But that way we don't keep you guys longer than we need to. We know you have important jobs out there. So this question: state officials have put the decision to close schools into the hands of the local superintendent. What criteria is being used to determine those decisions in our local districts? It does seem that the farther we get into this pandemic situation, the less flexibility our local decision makers have. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, my hat's off.
Go ahead, Wayne.
Let me just say, my hat's off to the mayor for the decision. I don't know if it was a decision, but he wrote all of us and encouraged us not to go to open schools back up after spring break. And I'll be honest, that very day I was about to send an email out saying that we're going back to school, on Monday. And historically we all cry out for local decision making. We want to make the decisions. And I think this situation is a little bit different. I think we're all looking for higher powers, people with more knowledge and understanding of the situation to help guide us through this and potentially just make the decision. This is about it's about having good information and making good decisions. And, I think the higher you climb up in our government, you have better physicians and, people with better understanding of these situations. So I know at this point, I'm leaning more on, the guidance from state and local officials to be able to make these decisions. Just a prime example, I was about to make the wrong one. And, again, hats off to our mayor because, he made the right call that we need to close down, and our community is going to benefit tremendously from his encouragement to us to not go back to school.
All right, how do you think COVID-19 will change the way your districts move forward once it's all over? Do you foresee any permanent changes on the horizon for the way you all operate?
I think one of the things, I think that'll be a positive that comes out of it is I think we'll just be better prepared for remote education. And what that's going to benefit is anytime a kid is absent or a kid is out on homebound and things of that nature. So I think we'll be a little better prepared there. I think our connectivity will be vastly improved over the next, year or so. So there's some good things that come on that side of it. To me, I think we'll be a little more in tune during flu season to any type of things like that about taking precautions on how we mitigate that. I think we always have done that. I think we'll be a little better at it. I guess your biggest fear is that does this, anytime there is any type of new illness that comes out, do we get a knee-jerk reaction and go into the same aspect of what we're doing? You hope not. You hope everybody continues to use common sense and keep everybody as safe as possible, but at the same time, not overreacting. And that's a fine line to decide which one you need to do. What is too much? One of the best things I heard a guy say, he was a doctor, he was talking about, he said, did we overreact on that? He said, we'll never know. If we do a good job and we keep the numbers low, it may appear that we did, but in actuality we did not, because we saved lives. And so that's the number one priority, is keeping everybody safe. I just think it makes us a little more aware of what's going on and how we take care of ourselves and keep everybody safe, whether it's the COVID-19 or whether it's the flu or anything else, because for your medically fragile, they don't need to catch anything. So I think we'll be a little more aware of that, and I think we'll do a little better job.
All right, thank you. We will start with the questions from the audience. They have been submitting some great ones throughout the presentation. So we'll start with this one. How are the districts coordinating for alignment purposes?
Well, one more time, creating for alignment purposes?
Yes, are you three working together outside of, this particular presentation to stay on the same page?
I think the main thing we're doing, and everybody said that, Wayne just got through talking about direction from the state. The Commissioner of Education does a conference call daily, normally at 3 o'clock. Today's 3:30. And there's about 1,040 school districts in the state. And normally there are 1,000 of us on those conference calls. So we're not just coordinating that here in Longview and Gregg County, but that's being coordinated across the state. There are over 5 million little children in the educational system for the state of Texas, and that's a big deal, and every one of them deserves an equal opportunity. And with over 1,000 people, average on the commissioner's call every day, we're all trying to stay on the same page, trying to move forward together, and ensure that every student in the state of Texas gets the benefit that they need. And so it is something that is not being taken lightly, and we're all trying to ensure that every student gets what they need during this pandemic.
Thank you for that. We have a note. It's not a question, but a note from Chad Patterson with Boys and Girls Club. We are honored to partner with each of you in your districts providing after-school programming for our kids. We are ready to join in the opportunity to be there for kids as soon as the doors open. So I'm thinking that Chad is referring to that tutoring, helping the kids catch up, helping families in different ways that they need. So want to make sure that we remember that they are one of your partners and will help you guys. Speaking of some other partners, Junior League and Veribank do stuff like school supply train, Step the Bus programs. Those are usually in August. Is this something we should be thinking about for the end of April or throughout April to help our families? Is this something we need sooner than August?
I think
Go ahead, Steve.
It's one of those things. It's definitely going to be a problem sooner because of the nature of the situation we're in. So those are good things to do now. The problem is with social distancing, it's harder to really go out and generate the kind of energy and big groups to go out and put stuff together. It's a little more challenging to do, but I do think there's a large need for that over this next 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay, thank you for that. Speaking of that, it kind of brings up the topic of, the more people that participate in helping and handing or handling items such as canned goods or teachers with the paper packets. Is there any fear of transmitting the virus on some of these materials?
I'll tell you, one thing that's been amazing through this entire process is the Commissioner of Education. As Dr. Wilcox mentioned, he has daily briefings with us. And one thing that's different about him than any other previous Commissioner of Education is he has really taken on a support role to support us, through every day, everything we're going through. And TA has actually created guidance documents, for the very thing you just discussed is if we're going to distribute material, we actually had guidelines that we could use before we handed those out. So in so many different areas, TA is helping. They've created work groups. They've created an entire work group just to help us define what does in-home learning look like. What are some different things we need to think about and take into consideration. So yeah, it's definitely a concern passing out materials like that, but we do have guidance and a lot of precautions that we're taking when we distribute materials like that.
When you distribute the food, since that's one of the things that we've been talking about, why is it important? We've heard different reasons of why it's so important for your families to partake in those school food programs.
Well, I think one, because, a lot of people are being laid off right now, and this isn't going away tomorrow, I don't believe. I think this will be an extended amount of time. And, families just need to take that into consideration that, let's start saving now and, partaking in these food programs. One, for speaking from a district standpoint, this isn't a hit on the district. This is a federally funded program. So we're not taking a hit. It's not going into our funds. So take advantage of it. This is going to be a marathon rather than a sprint. So we definitely encourage all families to come and participate in it.
Thank you. This is more of a comment. Some individuals have students in 2 or more districts. Campuses are not functioning the same, and it creates confusion within that household. How would you respond to that?
That's probably
Well,
the
I
case
think
before when we were in school. Go ahead, Mr. Wilcox.
All right, Steve.
I just think the biggest thing is, different campuses have different needs depending on the grade level. My elementaries to an extent are very much, very similar, my 2 elementaries. But if you jump into middle school, you jump into junior high, the needs of the students and what we do academically changes a great deal. You go from being mainly just 1 teacher or 2 teachers to having, 6, 7, 8 teachers. And so that's always going to change the needs. That's no different than it is during the year. We're trying to stagger pickup times at different campuses to make sure if somebody needs to pick something up, it doesn't all have to be at one campus at the same time, trying to provide as much flexibility as we can for parents. And as we've said, our parents that do a problem with some of that, we're able to meet those needs if we've got delivered or whatever it is they need.
Okay, the next one, Partners in Prevention Mentoring Program through the City of Longview is also ready and willing to support their students and their families in any way that they can. Are there any ways the districts would like mentors to reach out to their students? Did you guys hear that question?
For us, we've been reaching, we reach out to our kids each week. Our teachers do, talk to them, see what it is that they need. We're kind of taking it on a student by student basis. If there's a student out there that they feel like is getting a little off track or maybe needs a little more assistance just in some guidance beyond what we're doing academically, then that's a need they share with the principals or counselors or anybody else, and we reach out to get them the help they need. It could be that they need to be in touch with their mentor. We're well aware of those students that have those and need those, and so we look at it on a student by student basis, week to week.
it's important to keep that special relationship going. So I would encourage all the mentors to reach out to whomever they're with electronically. Hey, I'm here for you. Let me know. I'm going to call you and or text you or email you and set up a time when they do that. Those relationships were hard to develop, and but I think it's going to be important not to let that slip. Even if the student doesn't need to know anything, but hey, you're thinking about them. That's a big deal to a lot of kids. So we appreciate our mentors. We love what you're doing. It's needed. It's important, and just whatever you can do to keep that relationship going, and don't let that be something that just slips away and is a victim of this pandemic.
All right, and I would agree. Some of the simplest things in life are the highlight to our students' day every day. A lot of kids, they'll dress up and put all their best clothes on just to walk down and receive their lunch. Our kids, every day I hear kids tell us that they miss us. I mean, they missed us tremendously, and it's been interesting to watch that. So I would definitely reach out to the kiddos that you mentored. I think in most cases it'll be a highlight to their day.
We have about 4 minutes left, so I kind of want to end this on a fun note. I believe I saw Spring Hill Primary is doing a teacher parade through some of their neighborhoods. What are your teachers and staff members doing to maintain contact outside of assignments with your students to keep their morale up?
Over at Pine Tree, our teachers are, they Zoom with their kids all the time. They'll do a WebEx meeting with them. They're trying to provide some fun, entertaining projects for the kids to do and let kids share with videos and things of that nature. Really trying to take that classroom culture that they have on a daily basis and put as much of that as they can into the remote side of things. And I think it's just it's the nature of the relationship that teachers and kids have, how much they love being around each other and being together and trying to share as much of that as they can, even though we're not in class every day. Like I say, I've been amazed at how creative people can be. One of the things that the kids had to produce a little video, and it was just kind of an entertaining thing about, what the COVID-19 pandemic, how it's affecting them. And so the kids are real creative, and it allows them to kind of interact with each other and see each other's videos. I think it's just one of those things of trying to keep as much of the normalcy as we can to the relationships that the normal classroom has.
All right, thank you. I have one comment before I close, and that is just as we've asked the districts for a list of things that they need. If you're on this call and you're a nonprofit organization, or you're an organization that wants to reach out in any way, if you could email me at mamaya@longviewtx.com the ways that you and your team are able to help, so that we can cross-reference this information and get the right people together that can work together to help. So with that, I would like to thank our 3 Longview superintendents for taking time from their hectic schedules to help us think through these next steps and prepare for the future. One of the roles your chamber plays is to help create an economic environment that allows prosperity to occur. Together, we will be stronger, and we will come through this rocky period stronger than ever before. Again, on behalf of the Longview Chamber, we appreciate your participation. As a reminder, this webinar is being recorded and will be made available online at longviewchamber.com. For those on the line, you will receive an email later today with a link to listen to this again, or you could share it with others. They don't have to be chamber members. So thank you and goodbye for now.
Thanks.